and Julie Jacobs, who is the alternate. Okay. All right. There are two public hearings tonight. The way the public hearings go is that the applicant presents the application. We then have an opportunity to ask questions and get any answers that we need. In the case of the second one, the solar pasture garden, there are some waivers granted, so we will discuss those. And then for the waivers, we'll make a motion to accept the waivers or not accept them. And then once we've looked at the application and determined that all the required documents are in, I'll open the public hearing, and any member of the public that wants to speak, that would be your time to do that. So the first item on the agenda, Sean and Wendy O'Brien, 8 Hodge Shore Road South, tax map and lot 164-009, case 2023-02. This is a special permit application for construction in the buffer. You're going to speak to this, Peter? Okay, this is for a driveway and an access building to be placed by going through some of the wetlands. So can you go through the application for us, please? Yeah, you need to turn your mic on. Oh.
Okay. It made some kind of noun. I just turned that on. Ta-da. Don't be bashful. Don't be bashful. Okay. Is that working? Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you. I'm Peter Cooperdock, Fernstone Associates. I'm representing the O'Briens here tonight for a special use permit application. As Ms. Barnard outlined, their interest is they have a lot on Lake Wentworth that has two dwellings on it, one year-round, one seasonal. The year-round has a state-approved septic system from the 80s. The seasonal's a 100-year-plus old cottage that has an grandfathered septic system behind it. Their interest is to build a new septic system in the back area of the property, and along with a barn back there as well. To do that, they will remove the existing septic systems, construct a driveway through the wetland with 2,998 square feet of impact through 3 locations, and get to the backland where they will build a septic system for a total of 6 bedrooms and a barn to store various stuff that they have. They have a waterfront property, so they have a lot of things that they like to need to store over the winter. Boats and watercraft, various kinds, cars while they go away for the winter, and also construct a workshop for them to do various projects. So they own 2 lots, one the waterfront lot 9 and the rear lot 11. The leach field actually is going to be placed on lot 11. They have a state wetland bureau permit approved for this. They've got approval from the Army Corps of Engineers. They have a shoreland permit, and they have a septic system approval from the state of New Hampshire. The wetland they're crossing is contains poorly drained soil. It is a common wetland found in this area, and the idea is to build the driveway with culverts in appropriate locations to maintain a hydrologic connection across the driveway.
Okay, could you comment on why you feel this application meets 175-10C1, please? The
10C1. Okay. Is that the relevant facts and circumstances for decision? Is that what this is? Oh, okay. Yep, thank you. There is no alternative location on the property in which to put this septic system or this barn in the area. There's, as you can see from the plan, there's a very limited area up in at the shorefront that meets the current setback requirements for the town of Wolfeboro. There is no place that a septic system could actually meet the setbacks other than this upland area that's at the rear of the property and on the adjacent lot. There's no other access to that island of upland that's located straddling their two lots and a butter's lot. And it's the proposed construction is it's essential to get to this property area of their property. Is that?
Have you seen the comments from Conservation Commission?
Yes, the Conservation Commission, with the Wetlands Bureau application, expressed some concern about vernal pools in the area. I have delineated areas that I call suspected vernal pools on the plan that I located based on a field survey in June. The only species I found there were bullfrogs. That I did go through the EPA's vernal pool assessment determination process for the review with the EPA and the Army Corps, and the feeling is that this is a driveway. It's not like it's going to create any more traffic than already exists, and it's not any closer than what's already happening around the property. As you can see from the plan, if you look at the plan, one of them is actually up at the top off the property. There are three others that are adjacent to this property, and the proposal is farther away than the current impact around the property, and there'd be no greater impact than currently exists. It's not like we're creating a new lot and there's increased traffic going through this area. So in that way, I feel like we've addressed that. The comment that I suggested to the EPA was that we'd restrict construction out of the breeding time for the amphibians, if any are there, so that won't impact it. It wasn't considered a restriction during the Wetlands Bureau permit. But we're willing to prevent any construction during the breeding season for amphibians.
Okay, well, Conservation Commission said they could see the benefit of having the septic system on the other lot. But they would like to see, once you put the pipes in, that would be filled in, and that would be much better for Lake Wentworth. And so could you comment on that?
Oh, yeah, I certainly understand their interest in having an area, regenerate and not be a permanent impact, which is what they're suggesting. But the interest is to have a barn, and there's not enough room, even if they put the barn in the area where the leach field is, to accommodate the O'Brien's needs. And it also would prevent any kind of ability to maintain that leach field. If anything happened to it, we'd be in the same boat again. And, you know, so there's two things going on. They don't have enough room to really put any, put the kind of barn that they want on their property to store their products up in the front. They do have this property, upland area available to the rear of the property, which they should have a right to access. They have a leach field that they'll have out there, and if it's all regrown, they won't have access to any ability to maintain it, and we'd be going through this process, you know, in 25 or 30 years again. And it'll also limit their ability to use the property that they have. I certainly understand the sentiments, but in this case, I don't find it practical.
Okay, well, it seems to me, in looking at the plans, that you would have room for a barn, maybe not the size they want, but some structure over here on the upland part of the property.
You're talking about where the existing leach field is.
Yes.
It's of insufficient size for what they're interested in putting in. And I think they have a right to utilize their property in a way that doesn't impact, and putting this driveway through wouldn't have a detrimental long-term impact to this wetland.
Oh, okay, the other issue, Tavis, they're allowed 3 accessory dwellings, and this would be the 4th.
No, they're allowed 3 accessory buildings based on the lot size.
How many?
3 accessory buildings. Right now they have 2.
That's what I just said, 3, and they've...
Well, not quite what you just said. That's what you meant. They have 2 existing single-family homes.
Yeah.
And they have a shed and a barn.
2 sheds, and they're proposing a gazebo.
Right, the gazebo is not there, so they would be precluded from getting the gazebo if they built this proposed barn.
They would be precluded from
Correct.
using the gazebo, constructing it.
Correct. The gazebo was not there at this time.
Okay, all right, let me open it up. Go ahead, Doug.
Is there a reason why the barn could not be located where it shows Station 4 here on the plan?
Yep.
Which is in between the first and second?
That's the existing leach field. It's
okay.
It's not a large enough area for the barn.
How about where the gazebo is?
Well, the gazebo is not even, doesn't meet setbacks. The proposed...
Correct. Is there room on the land? Or is that going to break the shorefront regulations? I don't know if that's the board's concern. That's where I'm going.
And I would also say, with regard to Station 4, if that leach field's being removed, then a structure could be put there, although it may not be as large a structure as they might want.
You need to eat the microphone, Peter.
No, he said died.
It's died.
Died.
Needs a battery. Yes.
I will get you a battery.
Okay, so
Get close.
they have a
Sorry, Peter.
area available in the front of the property, but they have land in the air, in the rear, that they would like to have access to for the use of the barn, put the leach field in. They don't really want to put a barn in front of their building, whether it's maybe it's not your concern on whether that happens, but they also want to have some room, because currently the cottage that's there, sorry, Michael, but
No.
let me finish. This septic design is designed for the 2 bedrooms that are existing in the year-round house, and the potential for expanding the cottage that's there into a 4-bedroom house at some point down the road. Right now, there's 4 bedrooms on the property. They have designed and gotten approval for a 6-bedroom leach field with the idea that they have, whether it'll happen or not, the ability to expand the existing cottage into a four-bedroom house. And
Okay,
if I
but
put a barn there, it would
what we're
preclude
hung
that.
up on is that the regulation says no alternative location outside the wetland setback or buffer. And so that's what we're trying to determine. That's why Doug just said that possibly a smaller building would work.
Well, okay. Is this working? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So a smaller building wouldn't meet what they are interested in the uses, wouldn't be large enough for the uses, which is to store their boats, their cars through the winter, and other things, and provide a area for workshop for various projects that they're planning to do. Yes, Michael? Can I call him? Is that all right?
Go ahead, Mike.
I would like to be able to drive my car without bothering to get a driver's license. But the rules say I have to have a driver's license, so I have to abide by those rules. Your clients have to abide by the zoning regulations, whether they like it or not, whether they're going to allow a big enough barn for their uses or not, whether it's going to be allowed where they would like to put it or not. We're dealing with requirements, as Kathy said, that we have no ability to waive in this particular case, and you guys have to abide by. Conservation Commission was very clear in their recommendation, quote, "It would be less impacting to build the barn in the upland area identified on the plan drawings between the first and second wetland crossings." They clearly went out there, they looked, they saw. We rely on their recommendations. If they say that there is another location suitable for this use, other than the one that you're planning, we have to listen to that. We've heard so far, at least I've heard so far tonight, no argument from you suggesting that their conclusion is incorrect and that your solution is the only one that's appropriate. I notice in your project report, you write, quote, "This wetland performs water quality functions to a high degree. The wetland and adjacent upland represent high-quality wildlife protection," unquote. I assume you stand by what you've written. I assume what you wrote means that this is a high-quality wetland, therefore it needs some particular consideration. We rely on the Conservation Commission to go out and exercise that kind of oversight and recommend to us what they think we should do or not do. Regulation states quite clearly, no alternative location outside the wetlands. There clearly is one. In my opinion, the application fails on that
I have
requirement.
a hard time agreeing with you, I'm sorry to say, on that. I don't think there's an appropriate location available for a barn that doesn't impact.
Well, you heard from Mr. Breskin, Station 4, also on my drawing, was where I would have put the barn had I wanted to comply specifically with 17510C1 or 10CA. I notice also on your plan that there is an existing leach field right next to the seasonal house, the one that goes closest to the lake. I wonder why the leach field can simply be replaced with the new leach field in the same location.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't meet setbacks from the lake, okay? You can clearly see the 50-foot setback line right
Yeah, you're
there.
correct. I apologize.
75
I withdraw that
area
concern.
would
But
not-
can you-
would not
Well,
work there.
it's a concern, but you have every right to maintain a legal existing structure.
Well, I guess you could repair it in kind.
Correct.
No, you can't. It's
Yeah.
against current rules to repair a leach field, a failed leach field in kind. You have to, you go through the state.
That's a state rule, not a town
Okay,
rule.
then you have to find a location for the leach field, but you're looking for the barn at the end of a 3-wetland crossing road.
Correct.
And we have found a location which is alternative to the one that you are proposing that doesn't require 2 of the 3 wetlands crossings, which better protects the wetland, which your own narrative says is an important protection for the area.
I agree. It's a high quality wetland. I don't go back on what I said in that report. What I do say is that the crossing we're proposing has a minimal impact on that wetland. It would not. Hydraulic connection would be maintained.
But you would agree that if you have three
And most
wetlands...
most of the area of the wetland area would end up being preserved by this without impact.
Would it not be better to have only one wetland crossing than three?
If it served the needs and the rights of the individual to access their property, they have a right to cross this.
We're back to where we began.
Oh, okay.
And I believe that they have a right to access the rear of their property for use for the leach field, which there isn't a place to put it up at the
Peter,
house.
did you have a question?
I'm just looking at the barn, and, that seems to be an issue. It is near the blue hash marks. And so therefore, the question is, could that be moved onto the 5-acre lot that's lot number 11 without any issues? I just can't imagine that you couldn't move it across that line, and you're not going to be too close to any other property lines.
Tavis has an answer for that, which I could answer as well.
There's no primary structure on lot 11. You can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure. So it's not an option to simply move the proposed barn onto the adjacent lot. They could be merged and achieve the same.
Okay. John, do you have any questions?
My evaluation was that when I went there, seeing the wetland in a hole in the backfield there where all the hemlock trees are, it all seems the same. And like you say, it's a flat area. It kind of flattens out the water and kind of creeps through there. When I looked past the proposed gazebo area, I walked over, I could see a stream over there that looked to be about 12 feet wide with water standing there. And so to me, that looked like there was a lot of water that came down through that side and ended up going into the lake that way. So then I was like, well, you're going to cross two areas there in the middle, and then when you build that road, you're going to get some 18-inch culvert and a 16-inch culvert, and then you're going to get the water that's going to bank up against that. And the more I thought about it, I was more interested in wetland crossing number 1, thinking that where the road comes in, the barn could be built there, and the ground could be mounded up and push it around the backside of the septic field there, and you could equal the amount of area that you're filling in the wetland and equal that, and then you wouldn't have the disturbed wetland crossings there. So that was my thought. I thought about keeping it closer to where the Hodge Shore Road came in, where it bent a little bit there, and just this side of the septic field, and it looks like there's some more area there, and if you wanted to build a six-bedroom septic field, I'm thinking that you could probably make some provisions there. That was my thought.
Vaughn, did you have any?
Well, one concern for that looks like an island that was probably created by the existing leach field, the fill area there. There is no area where the building setbacks from wetlands allows for a structure, despite the fact that there's a shed there. So I don't, that would be another set of problems, to put the barn in that location. For me, the question is I know the barn is a want, but I don't know if it satisfies the ordinance enough. It's not a need. You have two houses and a couple of other small structures. It just seems like it's going beyond what's really good for this lot, which is very wet.
Okay, Linda, did you have any comments?
No.
Julie?
Did I see somewhere that the septic system has already been approved
Yes,
with the leach field
in the back.
way out in the back?
Correct.
That's a done deal.
Yep.
So kind of no matter what's going on, they're going to have to dig through there one way or another.
They only have to dig through there if they're going to utilize that septic. Keep in mind, the piping and infrastructure to make that septic work require the same permit that they're here for. So the wetland crossings are obligatory for the septic as well as the barn. And something I'll just throw out there, because the property already has quote-unquote 2 primary structures, i.e. 2 homes on the property, I would recommend the planning board, if you move forward with this, consider putting a restriction on the proposed barn that no habitable space be permitted.
Okay, Peter,
Just-
did you have something?
Tavis, you ended up saying that you couldn't put the barn on that other property because there is no...
You're not
there's-
allowed an accessory structure
So
without a
therefore,
primary.
because there's no permit, or there's no regular structure. But then you suggested there could be a lot merger.
They could,
And so therefore, that would end up solving their problem in that particular regard?
with regard to an accessory structure on a
So
standalone
therefore-
lot, yes.
And then my question would be, if, let's say that they wanted to sell that particular lot.
If you merge it, you can't sell it.
Well, okay, let's say that, let's say that we allowed the barn to be built where it is, and the septic field is now in this other lot.
If they were to sell it without providing themselves an easement to the seller for the benefit of the seller to have the leach field there, they would have their own problem.
Thank you.
Just reading ahead, yeah.
Okay, are we ready to, somebody want to make a motion to accept the application as complete?
So moved.
And I'll second that. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, any member of the public want to speak to this issue? Okay, all right, well, okay, no member of the public is here to speak, so, I mean, I just firmly believe that this does not comply with our regulations, and it seems that the suggestion that the Conservation Commission has come up with, that they would allow the pipes to be laid in this area, and if we could approve the wetland crossing for just that, but not the accessory structure. So that's sort of where I come down. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Well, my viewpoint, again, I think if they're willing to build the barn on that front area, just in front of the septic where the road comes in, that's kind of a closer area, less impact, and that's where I am. Unless they wanted to do, again, if they did a boundary line adjustment straight off the pins, they could maybe contain that proposed septic system and build out there, but if they can't get to it, it's not really any good.
Well, the Conservation Commission's suggestion was that the pump lines be buried without having to construct the dirt road. And I would imagine, does that obviate the need for wetlands crossings, or or not?
If the pump lines are in the wetland buffer, that is a wetland
The
crossing.
wetlands crossing, okay.
Okay, well, I guess I can see the need for a new septic system, but certainly not the accessory structure.
I guess that's where I am. You've got old septic systems. This one moves it back away from the lake, and we're worried about the quality of our water. It makes sense to be able to give them the ability to do the leach field to get that issue solved. 1980 septic systems are old.
Okay,
I'm a little hung up on B, the special uses. A is no alternative location, and actually I find that to be true because that center location that the wetlands or the Conservation Commission noted is not buildable because of setbacks. But then B says the proposed construction is essential to the productive use of other land which is not within the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District. So, and I could argue that because there's a piece of dry land back here that's outside of all these buffers, that they could productively use, and it's not within the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District, the road is essential.
Or alternatively, 3 accessory structures is not essential. I mean, the site plan that the board has in front of it has a single-family home, functionally 2 of them, plus accessory structures that are compliant with setbacks. What it doesn't have is a compliant septic based on the number of bedrooms. But that, again, this is a self-created issue. This is something for the board to consider.
Anyone else have any thoughts?
To me, I would say that to the idea that they're going to improve their septic is what should be done. DES is in favor of that. The issue is the construction of an accessory building in the barn. And if we allow that to occur, or if we say they can't build one there, there is still the opportunity for these people to construct a building in that other particular lot. They make lot line adjustments, or they merge the lots, and so then it ends up being something that they could do. But I think that the way it is presently structured is a problem.
I don't know if there's a way to get to that particular portion of the property without a wetland crossing, regardless
What I'm saying is,
of the merger.
So that they are going to end up building the septic field over there, which then gives them that access to that property.
Correct.
So therefore, that wetland, we would approve the wetland crossing. It's just we would not approve the position of that accessory building.
So you're saying you'll approve the dig to go across the wetland because it will be 4 feet below the ground, and then the excavator buries the soil and the wetland surfaces stay the same, and then they don't build a gravel road over the top of it?
I would actually suggest that that really is not a good option because I believe that the lifetime of septic systems is somewhat limited. And so therefore, you are ultimately going to have to repair that system. And so therefore, to say that you can't have a road to get to it ends up being a problem.
Okay, well, the Conservation Commission feels that if the pump lines were buried without having a dirt road constructed over them, that it would minimize the impervious surface, and so, I mean, to me, that's kind of important.
Well, the logistics of building a septic field are going to require them to bring sand and material out there, so they need some support in order to make that happen. That's the other part about it.
Okay, but they could after the pipes are brought in, they could then revegetate that area so that it's back the way it was now.
I suppose, but again, then you're doing twice as much back and forth stuff, and you're going in and then you're hauling it out. If you do like Peter says, if they build I mean, it's basically saying you're allowing them to get the application approval for the septic, and that's going to require them to have a road to build the septic.
That they will then fill in and revegetate. Anybody else?
I think we saw some of this when they did the Pleasant Valley Bridge, where they put it back in and they revegetated it, and it's hard to see where all that construction took place. So I think they can do that. I agree.
But still, keep in mind, in 15 years, they're going to have to build a road in to get to the leach field to repair it and do the whole thing all over again. So what's better for the frogs?
Well, 15 years worth of having a road on the land as opposed to 15 years from now having to build a road on the land. It's a tough one, and I appreciate Mr. Cooper Duck's position here. It's not an easy solution, and I can understand his solution. I can understand John's concern that in order to build that leach field, there's equipment's going to have to get from the driveway, Hodge Shore Road, out to that location to construct it. That's going to cause damage on the land. Do we ask them to put it back again? I don't know. I'm really not quite sure what to do on this one, frankly.
Well, this is going to sound harsh, but remember, it's not the planning board's job to make sure the residence has a viable septic system.
Understood. It's the planning board's job to adhere to the ordinance, and in my opinion, the application fails on 10(1)A. On the other hand, I would much rather see a proper leach field with protection for the lake than what exists today. I don't see how I can do that.
Agreed. You have septic versus regulations in this case.
And that's a problem. If I were feet held to the fire, I would not be able to justify breaching the regulations because it's better for the land if I do. Regulations are regulations.
So where the existing septic field is and the proposed rectangle for the proposed septic, could that box be fit on top of the existing septic field area?
It doesn't meet setbacks
Setbacks to what?
Yeah,
to wetlands.
that was my.
You're talking
initial
about where the
suggestion.
existing leach field is for the
Right.
house?
What I'm hearing is the board asking whether it could meet shoreland setbacks better than the existing, while it might not meet wetland setbacks, and that might be the bridge to cross.
I'm not understanding, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
So the existing upland area where the septic is, could that septic be improved for a system adequate for the existing structures regardless of wetland setbacks? Because the state won't let you improve the existing septic that is proximate to the wetland, i.e. the lake.
Okay, well, it doesn't meet setbacks from the wetland. You know,
No.
that's, you know,
What I'm hearing the board ask, and I might be wrong, correct me if I am, what I'm hearing is lake more important than the wetland. So could you?
yes, in the state's
Could you
opinion,
fit the wetland, could you fit the new septic in regardless of wetland setbacks, yet be farther enough away from the lake to be approved by the state?
perhaps, but you'd be, having a, 15-foot setback from the wetlands, which the state wouldn't approve.
Okay. I'm just trying to
Yeah,
relay what
yeah,
I'm hearing the
yeah,
board say.
fine. Yeah,
So
that's,
the question that begs to me at least is that, yes, you're talking about not meeting the wetland setback if you improve the existing leach field at Station 4, but while you're possibly infringing on the wetland setback there, you also perhaps eliminate the need for 2 wetland crossings. So it's just weighing what's more or less
Well,
impact.
if the state's not going to give them a permit, it doesn't really matter. There's a location they can put a system on their own property.
Is the state going to consider the lake setback the same as a wetland setback?
They're not the same. One's 75 feet, one's 50 feet. So there's a difference in distance. But that area does not meet a 50-foot setback. And they don't have a hardship that they could go to in that, because they have other land that they can use. Like on Pascal property next door, which I don't know if some of you, I came here 10 or 12 years ago. This is this property adjacent to them. And there was no place to put a new septic system on that property that met setbacks. So I came here for a special use permit to be able to reduce the setback. And so therefore they're required to use that
But
property.
Does the state care that it's on a separate property?
No, it's just as long as it's their property.
Some ownership, okay.
Yeah.
I happen to know something about the area near this, and this is a very, very low wetland area. The number of contours in the area is virtually zero, and so therefore there may be concern about water flow underneath or through this area which is going to be disturbed, but basically there is no change in elevation, so there's very, very little water flow that's going to go through anything.
Correct.
Water that comes down into this swampy area is going to stay there. If we're worried about water infiltrating into the groundwater, this whole area, which you see with the red triangles, is going to do that, and the small amount that goes across is not going to materially affect the amount of water which would then flow in. So this is not an area where we have to worry about stream runoff.
Correct.
So therefore, to me, it is something where it really is an issue of what is allowed in that area. And to me, the barn ends up being an issue, especially if the property across the boundary line is available that they could work with in some other manner.
If
One question for you, Mr. Cooper-Doc. In the area noted as Station 4, think about that for a second, if the road ended there, your proposed road ended there, you ran your piping to the leach field, you built your barn there, is there room for your barn in that location? If your road ended there, could you put your barn there, run your piping for your leach field down, and then reconstruct the road, the damage that's been caused by the trucks to get to and from the leach field?
Okay. Well, there's an interesting, thought on, following up your thought there. And if you did do as you described, you would basically be cutting off access to ever getting to the leach field in the manner that you got there to construct it, because you now have a building in the way from the path that's...
Well, you build your building after you built your leach field.
Well, I understand that, but when eventually you need to replace that leach field, you can't get there. You got to go through damaging a different place, a wetland, to get there if you got a building in the way.
Well, another area that's precluded by the regulations.
It is?
Yes.
The statement is if you were to stop the road and build the barn, or stop the road, build the leach field, build the barn, you could no longer get further out to build another leach field or a barn. All of the areas in question are precluded by the current regulations.
So if you look at the yellow lines, it's hard to distinguish, but there's a yellow line here called building setback. You can see it over by the houses. It's relative to property lines in some places and wetlands in other. Mm-hmm. There is a yellow area between the two houses, and then there is the only other yellow area I can see is back where the barn is. So nothing else meets our own setbacks, which is why I'm hung up on B, 1B. It's essential to the productive use of other land which is not within the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District. To me,
Which goes back to Mike's point that this is a want, not a need. For
Doesn't say-
reference, there's nothing in the regulations that says you're required a covered parking space. There's nothing that says you're required an accessory structure for your stuff.
Right. But is it productive use?
Productive use beyond 2 single-family homes and existing accessory structures.
Could the septic field be put between the two existing structures?
It doesn't meet setbacks. I don't have on the septic setback lines, but you got a 50-foot state setback line that aren't shown on there. and also the 75-foot between all those setbacks, there is a very tiny little space that doesn't fit a leach field of any size in there.
But again, the board needs to consider whether a new septic for 2 single-family homes warrants a special use permit.
Okay,
How did we get there?
anybody else have any thoughts?
Just one more question. Do you think a new septic field will last 40 years?
It depends on how it's used. It's always, generally the rule of thumb is 20 to 25 years for a septic system. This is an advanced enviroseptic field. They have a large family. This is the Luigi family owned this property for 100 years. Wendy O'Brien is a Luigi. She's, been on this property her whole life. And there's, multiple siblings, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. A lot of people come here, which is part of why he wants the barn out there so he can get away from all these people on occasion and have a place to escape.
That's going in the record.
What's
That's
that?
going in the record.
Okay.
Yes, he will be held to that.
He will be held to that. Okay. Oh boy, I'm in trouble now. But this is, a choice. So the property gets a lot of use, and the septic system gets a lot of use. And I've been concerned about the cottage septic system for a number of years, and I've been trying to get them to do this for a number of years because it's just better for the environment. And I certainly hope we get...
For the board's peace of mind, the board is not addressing whether the barn is approved and or the septic is approved. The only question is 3 wetland crossings and the wetland impacts.
Right.
So if the board were to approve 1 wetland crossing and associated wetland impacts, based on your findings of fact, that's fine. If you were to approve 2 or 3, et cetera, that's up to the board. It's not the board deciding whether, yes, you get a 3rd accessory building and a leach field or not. It's just whether the wetland crossings and or associated wetland impacts are getting a permit.
And is that,
Okay, if the accessory building is going to be used for whatever, it sounds like this roadway is really an essential part. And what I'm thinking is that I think the Conservation Commission came up with a good plan. Yes, you can have the construction of this, then fill in the road and find another location for this accessory structure. I understand the needs of growing families, but, I don't think we can ignore this section of the regulations.
Kathy, I have a question. If you grant what the Conservation Commission is proposing, does that mean you would grant the special use permit? Because it would be crossing, whether it's a crossing for the leach field or whether it's a crossing for the road?
The planning board is only looking at wetland crossings and wetland impact areas. If the board, if the board believes that the test is met for any version of up to what is proposed, that is what's approved. What they do there is not the board's purview.
Right.
Oh, okay, but constructing the leach field out here, that can be considered a temporary infringement on the wetlands.
If that's what the board decided, yes.
No, I'm just,
Okay.
Nope.
that's what my feeling is,
It
that
could be.
really makes some sense to me. And
Well-
find another location for the accessory building.
So if that's the case, then they could build the septic field where the barn location is and have plenty of room in that location. Or they could find another location for the barn.
Yeah, right.
Well, the barn is none of our concern. There's no application here for the barn. There's only, as the planner said, there's only application for 3 wetlands crossings. I'm persuaded by Vaughan, Democracy in Action, that there is no alternative location on this site. And John's observation that in order to get to the leach field and back to build it, you're essentially going to be needing to build some kind of a road with wetlands crossings to get there and back. And in order to maintain it, if it's necessary to be maintained, you're going to have, once again, to cross those 3 spots. It's a tough location. It's important to protect the lake. I can find myself persuaded that the application meets the requirements, although I didn't come here tonight feeling that way.
The beauty of a public session. To that end, the public hearing hasn't been closed, so when
Okay,
you
somebody
decide
want to
to...
make a motion?
We close the public hearing?
No, we make the motion during the public hearing and close it.
Oh, all right. I'd be happy to move to approve the application for a special use permit for wetlands crossing and associated grading, tax map 16409, case 2023-02, with the
Seconded.
conditions
Sorry.
as presented by the planner, numbers 1 through 3.
Okay,
Seconded.
so that's the motion. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
I think it's been a very good discussion. I appreciate this.
Oh, okay, so I'll close the hearing now. Somebody want to second the motion?
Seconded.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Any particular findings of fact?
That the proposed construction is essential to the productive use of land which is not within the Wetlands Conservation Overlay District specifically.
And the renewed septic system is going to be better for the welfare of Lake Wentworth.
okay.
Will there be a condition for the use?
Just the 3 that are in the review, yes.
Habitable space in the
Yeah.
barn?
That's up to the board.
Yeah, yes.
Right now, you're
Well,
just...
he's asking if that could be a condition.
It could be a condition. Right now, though, as I sort of couch this, you're only reviewing the crossings. If the board wants to make an additional statement that there'd be no habitable space and any additional outbuildings, that's fine.
But that's,
Our regulations don't allow that anyway.
yeah.
Correct. But having it doubled down by the board doesn't hurt. I'm just tossing it out there.
Especially given that there are already 2 habitable structures.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so motion has been made. Do you have enough findings of fact? And seconded, and I close the public hearing. Doug, I was asking for votes.
I vote yes.
Okay, all right, Vaughn?
I vote yes, but I would like to add to the conditions that no additional habitable space be added to this property.
Yeah,
Is that
Peter?
okay with the second?
Yeah. I seconded.
Okay, is that okay with the maker?
I would suggest that perhaps there should be no habitable structures around it rather than space, because they may choose to add to the existing structures.
Structures.
Could they apply for additional habitable space on this lot if they wanted?
I don't know what they're going to propose with the
It
shed.
doesn't matter what.
Well, he's already said that they're going to enlarge the one house so that there's 6 bedrooms total.
Yes, they're enlarging the house to require
that
the
was
need
part of
for
the-
yet again more septic. So here we go.
Right.
But I think you're talking about you don't want them to add another structure to the
Another
lot.
habitable space structure, correct.
Yeah.
But that's not part of our application tonight.
It can be enforced without the condition, but
Yeah,
the
that's what I was getting at. I don't think, with all due respect, I don't think we need to put that additional condition in there since it would be enforced elsewhere outside of this process.
Okay,
Can I ask one small question that don't listen? What happens if they want to put an ADU in this space
it's
at
a
any
problem for
time?
another day.
Got it.
I would submit to the board probably that they already have 2 primary structures on the property, so they already functionally have a detached ADU, and let's move on.
Isn't this in the
Okay, we're in the
shorefront
middle.
is this in the shorefront district? I thought that couldn't detached ADUs.
Well, you're not allowed to have 2 single-family homes on any lot anywhere, but
Yeah.
that exists
They're
here,
already
so,
non-conforming.
but you're correct.
oh,
So
okay,
if-
okay,
if-
Mike, I'm asking for votes now.
Would we have a motion on the floor from
Yeah,
Vaughn
yes.
to add an additional condition which I've argued against, but I think we need to deal with the additional condition before we go any further with the voting on the application, right?
Well, no, usually we just. add
Robert's
the-
rules, if the seconder makes the recommended amendment and the maker doesn't make it, then the first motion would
Correct.
fail for
Correct.
lack of second,
the maker-
and you'd have to start all over again, or you could simply call for a vote on the
Correct.
amendment and see if that
Okay,
passes.
so Vaughn, you made the motion, and who's seconded?
Nobody yet.
Okay,
I,
okay,
Oh,
Peter
no.
just seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
I,
No,
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 I'm not in favor either. Okay,
that's now a condition because we have a majority.
right, yes, okay. So Peter has voted, we're continuing now with the vote. Mike?
Yes, with the 4 conditions as indicated.
John?
Yes.
Okay, Linda?
yes,
Okay, and I'm voting against. I just feel that the reasons giving for not wanting to make the structure smaller so that it would fit outside of the wetlands was not sufficient for me.
Kathy, you voted against?
Yes, I did. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yep.
get there somehow.
okay. Okay, the next application, Mountain Laurel Farm Solar Pasture Garden LLC, North Wakefield Road, tax map and lot 092-003, case 2023-03. This is a site plan review for a commercial-grade ground-mounted solar array farm. This project has been to the ZBA since it's not a permitted use, but I'd like the applicant to describe the project briefly, and then you need to explain the need for the waivers that you have asked for. And I hope you'll have some information for the easement area and the relocation that we can take a look at. Okay, why don't you go ahead?
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
My name is Andrew Keller from New Hampshire Solar Garden. And tonight I have with me Tom McCroy from Nobis Engineering. So with the two of us, we will kind of split our duties here between some of the solar specific details of this project and then any of the technical, high level technical aspects of our project. What I'd like to do per your outline, Madam Chair, is just to give you a quick overview of this project because this may be new to some of you. As you stated, we have been in front of the ZBA. We had a very productive conversation. We had a site walk with the abutters and that board. So we kind of got a look and feel for what this project actually physically is going to look like because it is new to your community. But just as a very high level, this project is being developed under what we consider the community power law that was signed into law back in 2019 and went through another round of legislative adjustments during the pandemic to make sure that communities could come together as one big buying group. And everybody from homeowners to small businesses to schools to the municipalities could come together and go out to bid to get the best price for electricity. Part of the intent of that was to have some of that power, not all of it necessarily. Some communities are vying to have all their power come from renewable energy. But the way that the spirit of this law in New Hampshire has been evolved is that they want a portion of it to come from local New Hampshire-based renewable energy projects. Could be solar, could be hydro, could be wind, could be biomass, different types of examples. I've been a developer here in New Hampshire for over a decade, going on 13 years, developing the largest amount of community solar projects across the state. So we have a lot of experience across different communities. And we've worked with Nobis for most of those 10 years, actually going on 13 years now, personally, on these different projects. So we bring a different view on this. We want to make sure you feel educated about what we're doing. We want the board to feel comfortable with it. We want the butters to feel comfortable with it. So where we're at right now in this project, and then I'll hand it over to Tom to take you through the technical merits of it, as well as some of the waivers that we are requesting. For starters, your concern, Madam Chair, is about the access. We have site control with the Bavard family, with Amanda, who's here tonight. So if there's any questions about the history of the land, she has a very in-depth understanding of her land for being here for so many years in the community. But we've worked with the abutting property, the developer, and there is a letter that you have that we brought in today that everybody's seen, that there is a letter of intent and a letter of support from the abutting property next door. So we have a path for bringing in the project from Village Corner Road. And Tom will go through the physical nature of where we've placed it and why we've placed it there. So there is proper site control. There is the letter of support. We've been working in good faith since the beginning of this project to find the best path. And currently there is a draft utility access agreement that's in front of the owner, and also some consideration that we provided for the homeowners association to do some improvements around their around their subdivision.
Do you have a copy of that letter?
I think it's been shared by Tavis, and if not, we have some extra copies for you. In addition, we spent a lot of time early on making sure that the physical aspects of this project met the intent of developing a community solar project. So we've gone through the environmental review with a phase 1 ESA to make sure there was no contamination on the site. We went through and made sure that there was no archaeological or habitat issues with the site. We've had our wetland surveyor out there to make sure that we're not going to impact any of the wetlands in the area. We're set back away from the setback requirements per your ordinance. We also spent some time with your fire chief. We wanted to make sure that, because we heard during the zoning process that there was concerns about fire safety and how to manage this project. So there's also a letter that you have received from the fire chief with his support for the project and how to handle it, how to handle any fire concerns that may come up. Really not unlike any fire concern. If your house were to catch on fire and you were a neighbor, you would want them to do your best to protect, fix your house or save your house, but also save your neighbor's house. We're a different type of a neighbor, but that would be our same intention, is to make sure that our equipment and our project is protected if a fire started outside of the land, or if there was a fire situation that occurred from maybe a brush fire or something around the solar panels. We would want to make sure the fire department can protect the abutters' homes. So you have a letter there. We also have offered some additional training to the fire staff during construction and after construction. And he also commented on the safety factor of being able to get in. If we had somebody doing some work on the project after somebody got hurt, could they get in there to get somebody out? And the answer was yes, based on some of the setbacks and the design that we've put together. A couple more details. Again, we've designed this project outside of the floodplain. Tom may touch on this a little bit, but we are preparing our state AOT application. We are disturbing more than 100,000 square feet of space, so we will go to the state. We will be looking for their approval for how we're designing this project from a stormwater perspective.
What do you need this state permit for?
That's
AOT.
Yeah, the alteration of terrain.
Okay.
Yep, and Tom will touch on that in a minute for you. And finally, a couple last points, and then I'm going to pass it over, is we've had to go through a very extensive utility approval process with the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. And because of the area of where this project is and the way that Eversource and the co-op, how their lines cross over each other, we're actually finished our full engineering with co-op, and now we're moving into a study with Eversource. So we've gone through that process. We know what the costs are going to be to improve these lines. These lines are not going to be bigger than what you've seen on any other street. They're not going to be big, huge towers. They're going to be standard poles. And then lastly, a nice part of this project, a little bit of a feel-good project, is we always talk about what happens after the project is built. And one of the things that was brought to my attention early on when working with Amanda and her son Robbie was this interest in utilizing some of their livestock to maintain the project after the fact. So this project is a meadow now by the terms of the state. We're going to maintain it. We're not going to strip dirt away and then replant it. We're leaving it just as it is. Very, very well-drained soils. And we're going to be able to utilize the livestock as a method to maintain the grass and the area around it. So we've got two experts behind me here that know how to do this better than me. instead of going out there 3 or 4 times a year with the lawnmower to mow the grass down, we're going to be using the animals. The term is called agrivoltaic. It's a new kind of buzzword in our world, so it's something we're very excited about. Right now, to the best of my knowledge, it'll be the first project in the state of New Hampshire.
Did you just say agrovoltaic?
Agrovoltaic, you got it. So this would be probably, to my knowledge, the first project that would be utilizing this type of application for ongoing operations and maintenance. So,
Okay, and did ZBA put any conditions on the variance? Well, wasn't he there?
I don't know if he was there. I was at home doing go-to-meeting minutes for the ZBA. The only condition I'm aware of is that they need to put the access drive in the same location as shown by the ZBA, which is where this is.
Which is where it is, correct. Yep.
It's hard to see from this info, and maybe Nobus will get to this, but originally the road was about 3 times as long as it is now. So this is a truncated version that is a straight shot in. So it's a significantly shorter road, significantly narrower road. I'll let Nobus speak to what it's going to be made of, et cetera. But I actually drove there this afternoon, so it's there already.
And that's an area that we walked with the actual ZBA, so we walked through, and Tom will touch on this, but the intent was to utilize the area that's already been disturbed the most, or where there's access, so that way when we go to the state with our application, we're showing the least amount of cutting of trees, disturbance to the actual existing path and or roadway that's out there. So we're trying to work with the existing conditions of these areas. So what I'd like to do, unless there's any specific questions, I'd like to hand it over to Tom, but I'm happy to stay up here for a minute. If there's any solar specific questions, then we can get you through the technical and then come back.
I believe I have a non-technical question.
Okay,
I think
go
that
for
you
it.
may be able to answer. Is that one of the Wolfeboro Conservation Commission properties is the Whiteface Mountain, which has a trail up it. It has access from Brownsford Road. And I believe that this particular construction project is going to be in the viewscape of Whiteface Mountain. Are you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
I mean, I will say that the view from Whiteface is not pristine, as in if you look west of the main road or east of the main road, there is a huge gravel pit.
Okay.
So this is, it is going to be something different in the viewscape. I guess I would also suggest that most of the people who hike that trail are going to say solar energy is a good thing.
Probably.
But at the same time, this is something that you haven't looked at.
No, it's not come up at all during the zoning process. I appreciate your concern. I think you're absolutely correct. I think that a lot of the people that would be hiking those trails would much rather see something like this that blends in.
And I would also suggest that the viewscape is not pristine to start with, so it's not.
Fair enough.
It is not going to ruin it, but it's something that perhaps you should be aware of because people may end up saying this is a problem.
Right. I appreciate that, and I think that what we've experienced in this industry over the decade of doing this is that some people love the look of solar panels, some people don't like the look of solar panels, and some people are right down the middle. So I don't know if we're here to discuss that, debate that necessarily, but I think it's a good point, and it's worth hearing. And
So I have a question.
would you like to?
If I might address...
You need to come up and...
Yeah. You have more knowledge than me.
I have not taken the trail to the top of Whiteface. I have been up in there before there was a trail, and I believe that looking off at the gravel pit, it's down the valley, and this is got Browns Ridge Road and Browns Ridge in the way, so I'm not sure, but I certainly would be willing to climb their path tomorrow and see.
Thanks.
Let me say I'm not worried about it. I just think it's something you should be aware of because you may get criticism.
Sure.
But I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, understood. Thank you. Any other questions on the solar front before I pass it off?
Go ahead.
Just a question for the planner, I guess. I know that the abutters have been notified of this. Given that the road's being put into the abutting property, do the abutters of the neighboring property need to be notified?
That's a trick question. So right now, Village Corner is a pending association. Right now, the developer owns enough lots that it's not beholden to the owners. So regardless of that, we notified not only the owner, but all of the individual ownerships within. One of the abutters, he's still here, is here tonight. He's going to express his own concerns. The only one that can speak to permissions over this land, there have been some emails back and forth, whether it's conservation easement or not. It is not. This is open space, active and passive recreation area for Village Corner. There's nothing in the original planning board approval of the subdivision preventing road construction or driveway construction in this case. Moreover, the easement actually predated Village Corner entirely. The original easement goes all the way out to Browns Ridge Road through the heirs and the signs of the former property.
Which easement? The one we're talking about? From Amanda's property to the Wakefield Road?
There are deed references to an easement that extend from the now Bevard property to the extent of Browns Ridge Road. Yes, they are not mapped. They are described as on.
Then they don't exist.
That's not true at all. There's a deed reference to a 50-foot right-of-way and a 40-foot right-of-way, depending on which parcel you're on, that it connects the properties all the way through.
Does it describe its course?
It doesn't need to describe its course. What it describes is these deeds are so old, it's as the two agreed upon at the time.
Are they relying on that easement for access?
I don't know. What I'm relying upon is the existing acquiescence of Mr. Doobie in Village Corner and the existing deed reference to the access to the property on top of the zoning board requiring access from this point for this project.
May I follow up on this?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Is there a homeowners association in this? I mean, I have to speak to the planner because you're not involved in this section. Is there a homeowners association in the Culloden Farms?
There's a budding one, but it's under control of the developer at this time.
Is there a document establishing an HOA?
I'm not aware of that. We don't regulate that.
I understand we don't regulate that, but if we're going to be approving access by an easement through Culloden Farms to North Wakefield Road, and there is a homeowners association, I'd like the homeowners to have signed off on access to this.
I understand where you're going. What I'm going to do is suggest that the easement predates anyone that lives in Cullen Farm.
Well, again, we don't have a course of the easement. We simply have, do we have a Woods Road?
Yeah, it's right there.
And is that what is referred to by the on the easement?
The easement, and I'm sorry for those on TV, I'll say it again. There's generally a road that extends right here.
And does the proposed easement follow the course of the Woods Road to access Wakefield Road?
Yes.
North Wakefield Road. It does.
Not North Wakefield Road, Village Corner Road, vis-a-vis Browns Corner
Village
Road.
Corner Road,
Yes.
beg pardon. So you follow the existing Woods Road,
Yes.
and there is on the deeds an easement between 40 and 50 feet, depending upon from where you access it, giving access to North Wakefield Road through the Culloden.
Browns Ridge Road.
Browns Ridge Road, not North Wakefield Road.
No.
But they're going to North Wakefield Road through
No.
Culloden
No, they're
Farms?
going to Brown
No.
Ridge.
They're going to Browns Ridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is the property in question.
Yep.
North Wakefield Road is over here.
That's Browns Ridge.
They are going to be accessing via this access easement, via the existing road, if you will, Village Corner Road, which comes up around to about here.
To Browns Ridge Road.
Village Corner Road has a lima bean shape in this area right here.
Yep.
And then that continues out to Browns Ridge Road. The original easement, if you will, is from Browns Ridge Road to this property.
Okay.
If you want to really parse hairs, from Browns Ridge Road to about this point, it's a 50-foot wide utility easement for the benefit of the co-op for electric overhead. And then there's the remainder of a 40-foot wide access easement that extends to this point.
And you're keeping a 40-foot wide access?
They're keeping the 40-foot wide access and proposing 20 feet of dirt driveway.
Okay, yeah, I've got some, I'm looking at the map, it looks like they're going through lots 15-11 and 15-12.
I think that's the way they've shown it, and you
Yeah.
actually go out on the ground now and look at the pins on the ground, that is not actually what's happening. There's actually a development lot here and a development lot here and a lot in between If you look at the tax map, there's actually,
Okay, but that was in the information we were submitted.
I don't know what the vintage of the property lines that the applicant used. What I can tell you is that the road is not going through a residential
Okay, well,
lot.
I'm just concerned
No,
about...
I understand. I'm trying to explain the difference.
But if it's a pre-existing easement, whether it becomes later on common land or not, doesn't really matter since the easement is in existence.
The easement is, I think the take-home for the board might be that there's an existing easement granting Bevard to Browns Ridge Road, and said driveway as proposed is not going through a previously approved residential lot in Village Corner.
Right, we understand that, but it's just going across common land.
Yeah,
And the common land, the homeowners association is going to have something to say, I would assume, over the uses of common land.
They
But
might
if
have
there isn't
some,
a homeowners association, it's
Yeah.
moot.
well,
well,
There-
I mean,
I believe the document may be there, but I think right now 51% of the ownership is not the homeowners, it's the developer.
Understood.
So to that end, even if the association decided they didn't want a right-of-way, I don't think the association can negate the right-of-way by their vote.
Understood.
John?
So,
Sorry, Madam Chair.
first question, how large is the parcel?
The overall parcel is 50 acres, and the area of the solar array is 21? 21.
So it meets the lot coverage?
Oh, you're getting into technical. I'm going to pass it.
Yes.
okay, yeah, we haven't heard from...
Yeah.
Coverage of the entire project is over 21 acre portion of the overall thing.
So, what do we, this is for Tavis, so we just had an application, we had sheds with solid roofs on them. What are we calling these? Are they individual structures?
This installation would be considered a primary structure. This is a primary structure that is able to be issued a permit based on the variance that was granted for use.
So there's no house or primary structure?
This is the primary structure, so saith the variance.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
variance.
the lesson is that the planning board has to come up with some kind of ordinance for the future to regulate and understand how we deal with solar
Yeah.
farms in town.
If I may.
And further, ZBA granted the use
Yes,
area.
yeah.
And
if I may,
further,
Madam-
while it sounds as though 21 acres is greater than 50% of the parcel, you have to understand that the array is not covering the entire 21 acres.
There's space, so
when
good
you
point,
take the
Travis.
square footage of each panel, multiply it by the number of panels, subtract that from the 21 acres, they are less than the 40% lot coverage. So the point to your question is they are under the coverage.
And what it's hard to see, there's to Tavis's point, there's in-row spacing, so it's about 15 feet between each row of panels. So it's not the whole thing is covered. And if I may, Madam Chair, just one point, just for education for the board, the value of an ordinance has tremendous value for future applications. What I do want to share with this board is that part of our process with co-op, New Hampshire Electric Co-op, is to find out how much solar we could put on the lines before we had to upgrade the substation 8 miles away. And we found that out because this project was originally going to be larger. It's come down in size by about 20% from what we originally had designed for, because we learned that if we went to the full size, we would have to replace the substation, which takes years and many, many millions of dollars. So I don't want to dissuade you from the value of an ordinance. There's definitely value in that. But for the most part, I can tell you that there won't be another project like this on these lines, because projects of this size can't afford to replace the substation, because it literally could be a $10 million cost. FYI.
Okay, so my last question is, since these are flat and these are going to be angled, is there any reflective nature that heads towards any roads or anything?
Solar panels are meant to absorb the sun, not reflect it. The only bit of reflectivity is partially around the perimeter, which is very, very minimal.
And further, the way they're angled is away from any of the existing roads.
Correct. Yep.
Are they stationary?
Maybe we
Yes.
could hear from
Yep.
Yep.
you now.
He's chomping at the bit over here. But was there another
Okay.
question over here?
No, I'm fine.
You're good? Okay. Pass it over to the smartest guy in the room, not me.
All right, thank you. My name's Tom LaCroix. I'm from Novus. And so going off of your last statement, the overall array is only supposed to take up 14 and a half acres of the 21 acres that we're planning to occupy with the project. So it's a much reduced footprint than what we just previously said. Going off of the application, we submitted a list of waiver requests. I'd like to walk you through those right now. For the solar array, starting with 17315 E4, Section I, parking is not proposed on the site. The site day-to-day is going to be closed to the public. There's going to be no personnel on the site. When the site is functioning at its highest capacity, there will be no one there, and it is a passive site. Nothing is being done on the site. It's just generating electricity. Moving on to Note K, solid waste disposal facilities are not proposed. The site is not, as it's not applicable. Since there is no day-to-day occupancy on the site, there is no need, and there's no waste generated from the site. It's just generating power through the solar panels. Landscaping plan, Section S. Landscaping plan is not provided, as landscaping features typically they go against what solar arrays thrive off of, which is open space and clear lines of sight, as well as because of the nature of maintaining a solar array site, there's not many personnel available to take care of the site. They're inspected on a quarterly basis. So if we had to install landscaping features, that would mean that we'd have an added expense to maintain a property that was originally not part of our scope. So we just wanted to make sure that,
Okay,
as far
but
as the function
there are
of,
existing trees around?
there are surrounding the entire property,
Do you have
and that
any
is not going to
pictures
change.
or anything like that?
They were provided.
The
They're
pictures were-
provided in the stormwater report that was issued back in January 17th.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to pedestrian walkways. As mentioned before, the circulation of the site, the spacing between the arrays, between each of the aisles is about approximately 15 feet. So it's we're able to fit a truck through each of the array spaces, the aisles, and as well as around the perimeter. And access to the site is the gravel access road, but that's going to be gated and closed to the public. Emergency personnel will be able to access the site to take care of emergencies that may happen. But for the general public, it won't be open. Lighting, seeing as though this is a solar array, the site is needed to be, the main use of the site is happening during the day. There is absolutely no activity at the location at night. So lighting is not something that is necessary for this project. Snow is going to be managed on site and stored on site. So snow storage areas, since the site is not going to be heavily trafficked, snow is going to just stay put where it is, and if access is needed during the winter months, it will be dealt with and managed and kept on site.
Okay, what about the easement area? Who would be responsible for that?
The property owner will be responsible for maintaining that.
This property owner or the abutting property?
We
Yeah,
would.
okay.
Yes,
all right.
the applicant there,
Okay.
sorry. As stated in the next section, 17315, no work is proposed inside the floodplain boundaries. 17320, no changes to the street access are proposed. We are looking to maintain the existing connection between Village Corner and Meadow Circle. So we're just looking to connect in, to visually represent that the path is beginning at Village Corner and coming down Village Meadowview Circle. Since there's no use on the site day to day, there is no need for any sewer or water utilities. That's why none were proposed. And there are no proposed signs intended for the site. 175.27.1, no bicycle facilities currently exist or are proposed. As stated previously, this is not a location that's going to be open to the public, and accommodation of bicycles is not something that this project is accommodating.
Okay. Any questions on the waivers?
Yes. Don't you want to be asking for a waiver from 17324 utilities?
The project does need a new electrical utility connection to tie into the existing three-phase
It
that
does.
is on Village Center, or Village Corner.
That's not a town connection, just for the board. It may require a connection, but that is not connecting to MED.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he does need a waiver because there's no need, as if there's no need for snow storage and no need for bicycles, there's also no need for a utility hookup. Should he not be applying for a waiver for that requirement?
It wouldn't hurt.
I'm just going to stick it in as an additional.
Thank you.
Question? Over here. You'd mentioned a moment ago that there would be no day-to-day activity on the site.
Yep.
But earlier it was mentioned this would be agrivoltaic. So I'm presuming that at some point there will be animals let in and out of the site. And how frequently would that be done and how would it be managed?
Let the property owner answer that one.
You want to come up?
You need to.
You got to
need
use the
come on
microphone,
up.
Amanda.
Can somebody lower the mic a little? Okay, great.
Okay. The animals will be on the property to eat grass. They will be housed, probably off the property, fed, watered, and put away every day, every night. We generally, now, our sheep go out in the morning, graze all day, and come in at night. We have coyotes and other things, so.
So my question, though, is the animals will be going in and out, and will people also be going in and out? And how frequently?
No, because most of them are grain trained and they come when we call them.
Everybody wants to eat, right?
Hence the reason we're really
So
excited about this.
the point being, the underlying property owner will open the gate and allow grazing animals to enter the property on a daily basis and be responsible for opening and closing the gate.
Right, it will not be the access road gate. It will be gate
Correct.
to our property.
Okay.
I have a snow question.
Sure.
What happens if you get we get a 3.5-foot snowstorm? I noticed that on the plan that the front edge of the array thing is only 2 feet from the ground?
Usually about, good question. It's usually started about 3 feet off the ground, typically the bottom edge of the panels.
Yeah.
2.5 to 3 feet. It's kind of like the snow that sheds off of if you have a skylight in your house. Like it's going to shed, it's going to build up. When the sun and the wind comes out, it will kind of subside. Just rule of thumb is that the solar panels produce roughly about 7% of their annual production during what I would consider the winter months in this part of the country. So it's just part of our, like when we do our design and our analysis of how much power the panels will produce, we take into 30 years of weather data at this actual, within a couple miles radius. So it'll sit there. Sometimes we've had winters where it covers the panels for a big part of the winter.
And the weight doesn't hurt it?
No, nope. So the racking system itself is meant for a certain amount of snow load and a certain amount of wind load. So all that's built into, again, the specific location in the country you put these things. So we interpret all that before we do our design.
Okay,
You want a motion?
yes, please.
Be happy to move to approve the waivers, and I'm going to list them individually. From 173-15E4, 173-15-1, 173-20, 173-22, 173-23, 173-24, 173-25, 175-27-1, 173 rather, 27-2, that must be a mistake, it's 173-27-1, 173-27-2, and 173-27-3 through 7, as requested.
Okay, I'll second that.
Before you proceed, Mike, I think you mentioned 173-24, which I don't see listed.
Yeah, the
No, but we
utilities.
already mentioned that, and we're going to add that
Thank
one,
you.
Okay,
just to be safe.
okay, so a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right. Did you have other things that you were going to tell us about?
Yes. Stormwater for the site is managed through a series of 4 infiltration ponds scattered around the perimeter. As you can see, bordering on the plan, the associated wetlands. So when we were originally evaluating the site, to avoid impacts to increases in volume and in flow rate to the supporting or the underlying wetlands that surround the site, we put in these infiltration ponds to mitigate against that. So there aren't any increases or impacts to the surrounding wetlands. To support the installation of the gravel access road, we have a series of roadway buffers and vegetated forested buffers. There's 2, as well as a ditch turnout buffer with a level spreader.
All right.
Questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
A couple of questions on the stormwater management proposals that you have here.
Sure.
The emergency overflow weirs, in which direction are those weirs discharging? Are they discharging into the pond or in the other direction?
They are discharging from the pond,
From the pond into the wetland.
as what was happening in the existing condition.
Okay. Your ponds are about a foot deep, maybe 1 to 2 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
Are they adequate to deal with a 100-year flood?
Based on new information that we received recently, they're more than adequate.
More than adequate. And yet if they overflow, they're overflowing directly into the wetland.
We do not believe that overflows will happen due to the information we've received recently.
You are aware that that wetland is one of the town's prime wetlands,
Yes.
and that it flows into the Saco River
Yes.
watershed?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Just for the board's edification, I understand that the Novus group started with different soils information than what they've been recently able to prove. So the soils information, if you look at the GIS map, says one thing, but in reality, it's slightly different.
Right.
This is a very permeable existing service. I think that's part of the basis behind
Yeah.
the infiltration basins themselves actually being overkill in this design, and I
Right.
think the same was also suggested by AOT.
That is correct.
But I suggested to the applicant they leave the existing infiltration because that's what the board has been submitted.
That's correct.
The type of soil that the farm is going to be built upon, do you know what that is off the top of your head?
In our original submittal, we anticipated that to be a B soil, and we've come to find out that they're now A soils. So there's going to be more infiltration that's happening, and there's going to be virtually no runoff happening from the site.
And I can't read from the plan, but in which direction does water flow naturally on this site?
Generally from the north to the southeast corner, or it's to the southeast and southwest corner.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
I still have some concerns about the easement. I understand why ZBA made the condition for it to come more directly.
Sure.
Directly in, but, I mean, the plan says a 40-foot wide easement.
Yes.
But how wide is the road going to be that's going to go?
So the road is going to be 20 feet wide in the area between Meadowview Circle and our property boundary. Moving in from Meadowview Circle, it tapers down from 20 to 14 feet. That connects us back at that width to Village Corner Road. So it'll be 14 feet wide from Village Corner to Meadowview Circle, and then from Meadowview Circle to our site, it's 20 feet wide. The thinking behind the placement on the gravel road was that we had an existing 8-foot wide path, which just by having a path implies that it's partially cleared. So we would have less tree clearing impacts proposed by placing the center line of the road along this path. So we're only seeking to expand the difference between the 8-foot path and the proposed 20-foot.
Oh, okay. And are you going through any wetlands or?
No.
Because we haven't seen a map of that area.
No, we had the property delineated and there were no wetlands in the vicinity of where our road is placed.
Okay, and it is going to be a dirt road.
It's proposed as gravel, but it's going to function the same as if it were a dirt road.
Okay. And about how many trees will need to be removed?
As far as the number of trees, I don't think I can answer that. I can give you an area. It's about 0.31 acres.
Okay. All right. In the landscape, you said that you had submitted.
Requested a waiver for landscaping.
Yeah.
There was a waiver requested for landscaping.
No, I know we granted the waiver, but he said he submitted some pictures.
With the stormwater.
They're in the their provided stormwater report under site photos.
Okay. All right. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, so how do you determine between what's dirt What do you call dirt?
The same thing that you do.
I went to school for it, so I'm trying to understand the soil profile. Is it 3/4 on top, 1.5 crushed bank run under it, or is it just field gravel underneath a skimmed off loam?
Nope, you hit it right on the head the first time. That's it.
3/4.
Yep.
1.5 bank run.
Exactly.
So what's the structure? How deep is it
It's about
going?
an 8-inch thick lift.
And you'll be able to support your vehicles when
Yes.
you're going out there. Yeah.
Yes.
Other questions?
Yeah. Could you argue against the need for an environmental impact analysis on this, for this project?
Yes, seeing as though we are not proposing any increases in volume or in flow rates getting to the wetland, we are successfully treating all the water that is on site, so we're not detrimentally harming any of the surrounding natural areas. And due to the new information that we've received, we don't expect any water to leave the site.
Okay. And could you argue against the need to advise neighboring towns that this project is going in as a matter of courtesy, not jurisdiction?
I could see a benefit in doing so if we're trying to promote the use of solar in different towns, yes. But I can let Andrew answer that.
Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily suggest that we go to other towns to get their feedback. I've had other projects where we literally were directly abutting the property line. That we did a project in Goffstown and Bedford, and out of respect for the fact that the array was going to abut directly to the actual adjacent town, then we did give the courtesy notification to the abutting town. But because of the nature of where this physically is located, I don't personally see it as a need, because if we was on like a main road and people coming from those different towns are going to go by it on a regular basis, I think that's a fair request. But being where we are, I think it's not as necessary.
Go ahead, Tavis.
I was just going to say, for the purpose of the board's question isn't whether other towns should be notified, but whether or not this board has jurisdiction over the project. So if the board believes that other towns may have jurisdiction or is hesitant to take jurisdiction over the project, it would be helpful for the board to make a determination whether it does or does not have jurisdiction over the project. If the board feels later that it would be beneficial to notice the other towns of the project that are roughly 1 mile one way and 3/4 of a mile the other way, staff is happy to accommodate.
Hang on, let me finish. That's unnecessary complication. I didn't use the word jurisdiction, I used courtesy. I understand that the project does not abut Wakefield and Ossipee. My only interest in suggesting that it might be a courtesy is that the use of the Bevard property is going to have access outside of the town of Wolfeboro into Wakefield and into Ossipee. So they might just be interested to know that this is being done.
Well, that's why I
not
tried
that
to
they have
add
any
at the end,
jurisdiction.
if the board was interested, I'm happy to put a notice out should the project be approved.
And I'm not questioning whether this board has jurisdiction over this project at all.
If I may, sir, I appreciate where your concerns come from, and I've developed in the past 2 different projects in both of those communities you referred to. One in Wakefield that was fully permitted. It did not move forward to construction because we ran into some subsurface constraints that we couldn't overcome as we got further through the process. So we went through the whole process. It was, I think, the AOT process where we came up short. So Wakefield has seen, and it was right on Route 16. So that would have been seen by people driving, up Route 16 regularly. And then on the other side, going up Route 16 in Ossipee, off of Route 16, we had another project that was on a main road close by. So the Ossipee folks have also seen this through their planning board, at their Board of Selectmen level, and I don't believe they required any zoning or conservation. So just for FYI, there has been some review.
I'm a strong believer in collegiality, and collegiality can extend from town to town as well as from board to board within a town.
Yep, fair enough.
That's the only reason I raise it.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, it seems.
Question. So who's going to benefit from this array?
Great question. So right now there are, I think there's about 30 towns across New Hampshire that have approved community power projects. It has to be approved by your annual town meeting. in March, or if you're obviously a city, which I know you're not, through the city council process. So right now, the law was, like I said, was just passed in 2019. It had some cleanup done about a year and a half ago, and now these projects are just rolling out. So our intent is to find the most local town that we can. Unfortunately, most of Wolfeboro is under the municipality, so you're already kind of a co-op, effectively. You're doing what other towns that are serviced by investor-owned utilities and the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, you already kind of have that in place in a big chunk of your town. So the intent here is to do one of two things: follow the community power initiative, or there is some legislation that's going through right now that could allow us to take that power and share it amongst anybody, businesses across the whole state.
So you don't have a place where it's going currently?
No, it's because the law just got pushed through, so we have to develop. The problem is if we were to wait for who to sell our power to, they would have to wait 2 to 3 years before we could sell the power. So what we do in parallel is to start developing our projects. And then while we're doing that, we have an exclusive agreement with, there's only 3 companies in the whole state of New Hampshire that are providing these community powers to these different towns. And we have an exclusivity with one of them that has roughly about 200 megawatts of town power that they're rolling out. And this project is a very, very, very small percentage of that.
So you named it, you mentioned the transfer station there, so
Yep.
who's the holder of that transfer station where you're sending that avenue through?
Technically, that's owned by the co-op. So the lines are co-op and the substation are co-op, and then on the other side of the co-op, it goes into Eversource's territory. That's why they have to do a dual impact study is the term they use for it.
So do you have to do any forethought in the future to allocate funding for their upgrades at any point?
We are. We're going to spend about the numbers coming in around $1.4 million worth of improvements that will benefit the community.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How many kilowatts is this project?
This is going to be a 4,000 kilowatt solar array.
Okay, I'll make a motion that this application is considered complete.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I can now open the public hearing. Anyone here would like to speak to the issues? That would be great.
Hello, my name is Lance Dupree. I am a resident of 37 Village Corner Road. I'm also the treasurer of Colden Farms HOA. I've been instructed by the members of the HOA to take a look at the plan since I was able to get it today. There's one part missing that I found is why isn't there a fire break put into the place around on that land? Because using the wetlands as a fire break doesn't seem like it would work out in the summertime when there is a drought. I only propose that a fire break be put in place with the fire chief taking a look at the property again, using the topography, and addressing the issue for the concerns of the residents. That's the only issue I had.
Okay.
And it is true, Tom Doobie is the declarant of the property at this point. So I hope that answers any of your questions with that.
Okay,
Do you have any
and-
questions of me?
Okay, do you have any concerns about the easement and the construction?
The easement, I think, will be decided by Tom Doobie. I'm not having a problem with that. I do trust his decisions with that.
Okay.
Construction of it is that the fire break be taken as a note of contention that it should be put in place as a protective measure. And that's all that I want to protect those residents in that area.
Okay, all right, great.
Kathy?
Yeah.
I have a question. How is this particular project different from what is existing there now to require a fire break?
A fire break? A fire break in this issue would be we have ready water to address any fires that come out. Say that I have a fire
but
permit.
how-
I'm just saying that I would be ready to address a fire that I had right there when I have a fire permit in my yard because I have a fire pit, and I do make sure that I have portable water available to put that out. We don't have that with this structure being put into place. What we're going to do is we don't have, just like they said, we don't have any water requirements, but I think you do. And that's what a fire break would resolve for myself, is that this protects that time element that would be needed for our fire department to respond and address any of the small issues that come up and protect the wetlands. It's just an idea that I looked at the plans. I thought you might all look at it also.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
So when Culloden Farms came in front of us for their second phase, they showed a picture of a fire pond that needed to be reclaimed and dug out.
Yes.
Was that ever done?
It's there.
Yes.
It was so.
It's there.
So if there was a fire or anything, that could they access that?
I'm not sure if the fire departments that are here, that's not my position to be able to avail. I'm just asking for that a fire break be put in place using the topography that's done. That could be anything from additional vegetation or even if it is a gravel berm. I'm not sure exactly what's being done here. I'm just asking for this to be evaluated.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm just trying to.
I don't have the answers.
Put the process in place to say, should there be a fire post somewhere located out near that water body so that they could draw water in case.
That post is there. It's on the opposite side. It's pretty much. Should be on there.
So it looks like it's a fair distance away, though.
That's why proper prior planning in putting a fire break between that property, at least the array would be built into the plan. It's just an idea that I had.
Do you perceive the fire risk after this solar array is installed to be greater than what is currently there now?
Yes.
Why? Why is that?
Anyone, we all have smartphones. Just put in solar farm fire on the web, and you'll see enough to motivate any one of us to say put in a fire break. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. The board should note that.
So come on up, sir.
The board should note that we have a letter from Chief Sadi dated January 13, reassuring that his department will be able to respond to emergencies on the site if necessary.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm going to ask the applicant you want to comment on the fire break, the suggestion by...
Yeah, I think some of the terminology of a fire break might be where we're missing each other, because one of the most important things, I think, to manage fire in a more rural place like that is to make sure there's not a lot of old growth, dead growth, dry growth. And as I stated before, the project before, which is hard to see the overlay of where the panels are within that field, but just for visual, most of the whole field was covered in panels before. And when we went through that process with the co-op, we shrunk it 20%. So there's roughly, I just chatted with Tom about it, roughly between 50 and 75 feet of space from the edge of where the panels would be to the edge of the property line. And all that's going to be maintained, low growth grass. We're not going to be letting it growing up. And I think that's one way of managing a fire break. The other point that came to my mind is that, to the point I think, Tavis, you point out that there is a location of a fire pipe for this property. I think the concerns I've heard from during the zoning is if there was a brush fire and it started near there, or if something happened inside the solar field itself and the fire was going towards these homes, is there a mechanism for those homes to be protected? And the discussion we had with the fire chief was, if we are the issue that started the fire, let it burn and protect the neighbors. And if you have the infrastructure there to protect the neighbors, you've got physical land distance, and you've got a mechanism to fight fire, God forbid, if it went that way. If it went the other way, and one of these homes caught on fire for some reason, and the fire was coming our way, as we discussed with the fire chief, please do your best to stop the fire from coming our way. And that's, as simple as that might sound, that is the simplicity of what we're trying to look here. So I think you've got, by us shrinking the system, the size system down and having a nice buffer, we have created a break. That ground is very, very, very dry, very sandy. It's not good. If anything did start, it probably wouldn't go very far. You know, you've been there how many years? Okay, so quite a while, and I don't know if you've ever had any experiences with this type of concern before.
I think something else the board might want to recognize, and I discussed this with the building official. A solar array is a DC power source. It's not an AC power source, so it's going to act much differently than if one of the high power lines out front dropped off the ground and started snapping and jumping around.
Yep, good point.
Their entire system is set up. One of the little infrastructure elements you see by the gate next to the access easement is the control module that watches every one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Those are tied into the alarm system, which would then trigger.
Yes.
And I did speak with Tom. He said he wasn't able to make it tonight. He wanted to be very clear that from soup to nuts, from the operations standpoint to all things related to fire, is what he intended his memo to say. He is comfortable with what is being proposed and the existing infrastructure. Wolfeboro will not be the first fire department there if there is an issue. It's either going to be Ossipee or Wakefield. And they were part of that discussion when Tom was asking questions to New Hampshire Solar Garden, et cetera. So it's a very short memo, but there's a lot behind it.
So how would you respond to this gentleman's point of a fire in a solar field? How would you respond to that if he said that this can be an unsafe situation? How would you respond to his comment?
I always caution people for just doing a random Google search because you never know what you're going to get. But my own work I've done, and this comes up almost regularly in every planning board meeting that we've been at. And what we've learned is that a lot of the fire related to solar is usually rooftop. You can Google that. You can find lots of examples. I think Walmart's had them. Some of these bigger box stores have had issues with fires with solar panels on a roof. Could go both ways. Could have started from poor maintenance, and that's what we've, as an industry, is so important to make sure that these projects are maintained and that you do go out on a quarterly basis. They are monitored in real time. So right now, if something happened to one of my arrays that I own myself, I would get an alert. That's where the problem is. If you're not maintaining, you're not checking the wiring, you're not going to check the system, just like any electrical system, that can cause a problem. So my response would be that proper maintenance is a critical piece of it, having the sophisticated thought process on how we design this, to know that there is infrastructure in their subdivision, which I think is probably the biggest concern, is how do we protect your land and your neighbor's land if something happened? And I'm pretty confident for what I'm learning tonight and what I already knew is that that does exist. So my experience over the 13 years I've been doing it, I have heard of a few rooftop fires. Most, if they were started inside the building, and there's been concerns about how the firefighters can turn off the system so they can go fight the fire because there's an electrical open circuit. The thought process with the chief and a lot of the fire departments we've dealt with across New Hampshire is we're not going to go near it until Co-op or Eversource comes in and turns it off. And those are some important details, and part of what we offered to the fire department here is some ongoing, training during construction, after construction, and that's the best I think we can do to protect them.
So what you just said there was pretty important. You said that wires could dry out and could bake. Do you have to go back 15 years later and replace everything?
No, so it's ongoing maintenance. So what we found is that there's the connection points between the panels. Sometimes there's a curious squirrel or an animal or something like that. Like that's why we go with the sheep, because the sheep are low. If you go with a goat or a cow, they're going to be much more destructive to the site. So it's a more of a quarterly and annual inspection that's so critical to these projects. And think about it from the perspective of the owner of this asset. If it's not working properly, if those wires aren't connecting properly, it's not going to produce the amount of electricity which affects the project. So it's almost self-preserving the project by making sure you maintain it, because these things can't just be, even though they look kind of dumb and sit out in the field, they do have to be maintained, otherwise you can have issues.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Public, Lenore, did you?
Hi, my name is Lenore Clark. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission, but I want to be clear, I'm here speaking not at the authority of the commission because we didn't have time to review this project. I'm here speaking for myself, but I just wanted to let folks know that I have had a few different members of the commission voice support for this project to me, and that I'm also overall in favor of it theoretically. I've got solar panels on my commercial property that I own. We installed a geothermal heat pump at my house last year, so I really think this is a very cool thing. I do just also want to point out, though, as you folks mentioned already, there is a prime wetland nearby, and it's I actually did a little bit of research just today, so I'm not an expert on it by any means, but it is definitely one of our higher quality of all the prime wetlands that we have. So I do want, and I'm really heartened to hear that there is a stormwater plan. That was one of our questions tonight. I'm glad to hear that that's in place, and I'm glad to hear that the soil capacity has a high infiltration capability, because that's important. And I just wonder if there was any consideration to any sort of erosion control with the steep slope that we have going from this site of where it will be. Okay, perfect. Other than that, personally, I say bravo.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. It seems to me that we have all of the required documents. We've discussed the access way. Tavis, just one question. Did the latest approval for this development call it a conservation subdivision? That was why I was concerned about it, the easement coming across that property.
It appears from the approved documents that they followed the density calculations of a conservation subdivision.
Yeah, okay.
But there's nothing in the conservation subdivision that says the undeveloped open space must or shall be a conservation easement.
Okay, but it says it's for walking and hiking and...
It is for both passive and active recreation.
Yeah. Okay.
And just to add to that, a couple of the comments that came out at the zoning board hearing was a number of people that said, we'd love to have that road improved a little bit because it'll be easier to walk our dogs. So it seemed to be mutually beneficial, at least for the extent of what they're proposing.
Thank you for that. Okay, so we've heard from the neighbors, except for the fire break. I think that has been adequately gone over. We've granted all of the waivers because they really are not necessary. We've got the stormwater management report here, which is very complete. And as far as the zoning is concerned, the ZBA did grant a variance for the use. And it seems that all of the other regulations have been satisfied. Did I miss anything?
The only thing I have concerns about continuing is proof of access over the easement. And I'd like to make that a condition of approval, that the applicant present proof of easement, proof of access over the easement to the site, to Village Corner Road. Because right now we have a promissory letter saying, yes, we're getting there, but we're not there yet, and I'd like them to be there before the permission was approved.
Okay.
So perhaps a condition looking for proof of legal access and utility easement between the properties?
I'd like you to word that condition as you worded the other three.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to go over the conditions that you're proposing?
So the recommended conditions here, basically, the first one refers to everything that they've submitted to date, including what's been presented at tonight's meeting. Applicant's responsible for the payment of all recording fees for the notice of decision, and everything in the packet becomes the controlling evidence should a question arise. The fourth question is applicant shall be responsible for providing copy of the proposed access and utility easement between Village Corner / Colden Farm and the Beavard property as shown.
Okay, very good. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on this application.
I'll be happy to move to approve case number 2023-03, tax map 092-003, a site plan review for ground-mounted solar array, non-residential, with the 4 conditions as enumerated by the planner.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, all right. Thank you very much, folks. It was a very good presentation. Thank you. Thanks, Lenore. Yeah, and thank you for coming. Okay. Discussion items. 10-year plan from DOT.
Yes, not a very big discussion item. I just wanted to take a moment to remind the entire planning board that on Thursday at 5 p.m., there's going to be the public information forum for the 10-year plan project, i.e. Pleasant Valley Road to Pickering Corner. So board members are invited to attend.
Did you just say 5 o'clock?
I believe it starts at 5, yes. I'll send you a link to confirm.
I thought it was 6.
It might be 6. I have it in my calendar as 3 because I have to start setting up tables. It might be 6. I want to say 6 to 8, but
Yeah.
it's on the website, and for those following along at home, I will make sure the website is updated.
You have it, John?
I think I have it somewhere
Oh,
here.
okay, I also sent all of you a notice about New Hampshire Business and Economic Fairs. Going to have a luncheon here, a brown bag luncheon on March 2nd. And one of the reasons I sent it is that they're talking about broadband initiatives, affordable housing, and Northern Border Regional Commission. So I thought some of you might be interested in that. There is no public here, so I guess there's no need for public comment.
Kathy, I just found the email. It's from 6 to 8.
6 to 8, yes, it's okay. Thank you. Okay, minutes from last time, this meeting.
I've got corrections. On the first page, where this person, Mike Cotter, starts mouthing off about CIP, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th line down from the top, sentence fragment, projects of a recurring nature, delete that, because it's repeated later. And then in the 7th, 8th line, the sentence fragment that starts projects with a useful life, delete that through the $100,000 figure. Again, it's a duplication. Maybe I misspoke or said it twice, but that makes it clearer. That's all I have.
And I would add on the second page, section B, the last sentence of the first paragraph, I expect that it should read many of the signatures were illegible rather than ineligible.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and to that point, I didn't think that our TRC information tonight from people was very legible. I think we've discussed that in the past and asked our department heads to write a little bit more legible so we could all read it.
Yes.
At least print their names so we know who it's from.
Okay. Okay, as far as the minutes are concerned, I'll entertain a motion to approve the January 17th, 2023 minutes as amended. Okay,
Seconded.
motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Abstain.
And I'll abstain.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, folks. Anybody have anything else? Nope? Okay, good luck with you too.
Is there two?
The next meeting.
You two.
Should be.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, aye. We're done.
Didn't I just
We're
call
going
for
home.
that?
Yeah, sort of.